Hello everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Parashat Pointers. This is Parashat Ekev, and there's a lot to discuss in this week's Parasha. But first things first, I want to thank a very special person for dedicating this week's message. It's dedicated for the zechut and the refuah of Shimon ben Chaya Feiga. Should have a full refuah shlema, and we should see only happy times, Be'ezat Hashem, for him always. The pasuk famously says, "Ve'ata Yisrael," and now Israel. Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel me'imach. What does Hashem your God demand of you? Ki im liyir'a et Hashem Elokecha. Only to revere, fear Hashem your God. Lalechet bechol derachav, to walk in all His ways. Ulehava oto, and to love Him. Ulehavod et Hashem Elokecha, and to serve God. With all your heart and with all your soul. This is one of the most famous pisukim that Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Jewish people at the end of his life. And he said, at the end of the day, the purpose of all that we do is rak liyir'ah, to fear God. Yirat shamayim, fear of heaven, fear of Hashem, is one of the essentials of Jewish living. It's one of the constant mitzvot. There are 6 constant mitzvot that we could do 24/7. If you feel Hashem's presence in front of you, that is one of the constant mitzvot that a Jew has on him. It's called Yirat Shamayim. All the time we want to know, is he a Yirat Shamayim? Does he fear heaven? Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the people, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. The word Yirat Shamayim has a shoresh, a root word of Yir'ah. Yir'ah does not mean to fear, it means to see Hashem. That's what it really means. Yirat Shamayim is an awareness of Hashem. Everywhere we go, we are constantly seeing Hashem. But it happens to be that if everywhere you go and everywhere you walk and every time you sit down you see Hashem in front of you, yeah, you're going to tremble. There's going to be a fear there because you see the awesomeness and the greatness of God everywhere. Yirat Shamayim is such an important midah. It's so much more than just fear. It's being with God every second of your life. There's a great sefer called Avodat HaAvodah. I quoted it one time before. It's written by the Tosha Rebbe, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, from a city in Canada called Tosh. He was such a great tzaddik, and he wrote in his book a very powerful message. It happens to be that I saw the same thing said. I saw it after I already wrote this article. I saw it written in the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. He also writes the same idea, but the Tosha Rebbe presents it a little bit differently. He says that there's a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. And in that Gemara, there's a statement, a powerful statement by Rabbi Bar Rav Huna. He said the following: any person who has Torah in him, but does not have fear of heaven, it is like a treasurer to whom they gave the keys to the inner doors, but they did not give them the keys to the outer doors. With what key will he enter? The Rebbe basically says this Gemara is telling us that the opening to all of Torah, the gate to anything you want, all success in Torah and in life, all comes with Yirat Shamayim. Without Yirat Shamayim, you don't have the key to the outer door. You could have everything. You could do the mitzvah, but you don't have Yirat Shamayim, you're missing the whole point. The Rebbe continued to explain that once a person puts all his efforts to attain Yirat Shamayim, then automatically you'll get everything else that the pasuk mentions. Because first the pasuk says, what does Hashem want? Only Yir'ah. But then it lists all other things, to love Him, to walk in His ways, to do His commandments. I thought you only want me to fear Him. The answer is that once you fear Hashem and you have Yirat Shamayim, everything else comes automatically. It's going to come. Because you have the right context to understand everything. It's important to continuously remind our children that the mitzvot that we perform and any inappropriate influences that we try to avoid is in order to instill this deep awareness of Hashem. If we don't present and explain the Torah and mitzvot in this context, that's the purpose of everything, why would we expect our children to buy in? They don't have the bigger picture. They don't say, why am I doing everything? The Tosher Rebbe used to instill this, he says, in all of his children and his students, Yirat Shamayim, Yirat Shamayim, Yirat Shamayim, because once they have that understanding that everything they're doing is to get that closeness to Hashem, that relationship, then of course they're going to do all the mitzvot. Yirat Shamayim is the ultimate purpose of everything we do. As the Gemara in Shabbat says, Rav Yehuda says, the Holy One, blessed be He, only created His world so that people would fear before Him. As it says, and Hashem has so made it that men should fear before Him. That's why Hashem made this world, that we should realize that He's here, He's everywhere. Oftentimes, parents are very fearful of negative decisions that their children may make, when the values that they have instilled in the children may be compromised. What gives a child the strength to stay away from seeing or hearing things that are inappropriate? I was once speaking to a young man who was having a very hard time staying away from certain transgressions. And I said to him, let me ask you a question. When you're hanging with the boys, is there a difference in the way everybody acts when the Rebbe, your Rebbe is with you, or your Rebbe's not with you? He says, of course there's a big difference. We act totally different. I said, that's how you have to understand Yirat Shamayim. Hashem's your Rebbe. Hashem's with you 24/7. So once you understand that, and you feel that, it won't be as hard not to transgress. You don't want to compromise the relationship you have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I heard a beautiful story brought down by Rav Yaakov Yisrael Twersky, zechut tzaddik levracha. He was the Horn Stipler Rebbe from Milwaukee. And he said that in the time in Russia, Tsarist Russia, when the Tsar was there was a Jew, and he somehow became the head of a bank, which is almost impossible at the time for a Jew. He renounced all his connection to Judaism, and he just tried to get up the ladder of the world. And one day he witnessed something very scary. He saw a tragedy, and a body came ashore, and they couldn't identify who this person was, but they saw that he was wearing tzitzit, and because he was wearing tzitzit, they gave him a halachic Jewish burial. Now this assimilated banker came to this realization and said, you know what, I dropped everything. I totally not connected to Judaism. I put financial success before everything else. Let me do at least one thing. He started to wear tzitzit, and little by little, it had an effect on him. He started to see the tzitzit, and he started to renounce all these things that he was doing. He dropped his job in the bank, and he became a religious Jew, and a very, very prestigious person in the community. You know what I see from this story? In this story, we see that tzitzit is not something that's an end of itself. It was a vehicle, a springboard to make this person realize Hashem is in my life, Hashem is in the world. I have Yirat Shamayim now. Can you imagine if we start teaching our children to wear tzitzit, and we tell them that the purpose is that you should feel Hashem with you, that He should be with you wherever you go, that every blessing that they make on food is that you should realize that Hashem is here with you right now and He gave you this food, that every time you use the bathroom you say Hashem outside because Hashem is with you, hugging you. What a different context. Then comes motivation. This is how we get our children to take that key and open up that life of spiritual bliss. Perhaps now we could understand the statement of the rabbis that Hakol b'dei Shamayim hos meyirat Shamayim. Everything is in the hand of heaven except for the fear of heaven. You know why? Because that first key, Hashem's like, you got to take that first step, and then I'll get you the rest of the way. But I can't take that first step. You got to find me first. You got to see me first. You got to feel me first. Bezat Hashem, we should be zocher to give our children this amazing key and see the great, great, great nahat that our children are growing in Torah, mitzvot, and Yirat Shamayim.